8 doden en tientallen gewonden aan de Franse kant van Sint Maarten. Dat is de trieste balans nadat orkaan Irma op woensdag 6 september 2017 het eiland bereikte met een windsnelheid van 295 km per uur en windstoten van 360 km per uur. Het wordt steeds duidelijker hoe zwaar Sint Maarten is getroffen door de orkaan. Sint Maarten is het zwaarst getroffen in vergelijking met Saba en Sint Eustatius. Op Saba en Sint Eustatius is de situatie overzichtelijker. Maar het openbare leven in Sint Maarten ligt plat. De schade aan de infrastructuur is enorm. Ook de luchthaven van Sint Maarten is zwaar getroffen. De 3 eilanden, Sint Maarten, Saba en Sint Eustatius, hebben ondersteuning gekregen van de Nederlandse militairen, gestationeerd op Curaçao. Ook het Rode Kruis in Nederland heeft noodhulp verstrekt. Er wordt ook geld verzameld in Nederland voor medische hulp. Maar wat leert Suriname uit het noodweer in het Caraïbisch gebied? De nieuwsdienst van People Radio en TV vroeg dit aan kolonel Jerry Slijngard, coördinator van het Nationaal Coördinatiecentrum Rampenbeheersing, het NCCR.
Ik denk dat een belangrijke les is dat we een weersfenomeen als een orkaan, als je het ziet is het een heel mooi ding, als je het zo op een satellietfoto ziet. Maar de ravage die het aanricht is verschrikkelijk. Dus het is altijd goed om bij dit soort natuurfenomenen, om dus in elk geval voorbereid te zijn, om jezelf te beschermen en natuurlijk infrastructuur te beschermen tegen de gevolgen van zo'n rukwind of van zo'n hurricane. Ik denk dat dat de belangrijkste les is, dat we dus zullen moeten leren hieruit.
Wat gaat er precies gebeuren bij zo'n reddingsoperatie nadat orkaan Irma een heleboel delen van het Caribisch gebied heeft verwoest?
Het Caribisch gebied is georganiseerd. De overkoepelende rampenorganisatie is de Sept, dat is dus de Caribbean Disaster and Emergency Management Agency. En namens het Caribisch gebied zijn zij een umbrella organization die ervoor zorgt dat als landen, staten getroffen worden door rampen, dat zij dus in elk geval de efforts van de regio coördineren. En in dit geval is het dus ook zo dat de diverse effort coördineert van hulpverlening die moet plaatsvinden in de diverse getroffen landen.
Wat zijn de basisstappen of handelingen die gepleegd moeten worden volgens een rampenplan?
Ten eerste moet je jezelf in veiligheid houden natuurlijk. En daarna worden mensen soms geëvacueerd. Als mensen zelf niet in veiligheid kunnen blijven, dan worden er veilige safe havens, zoals ze worden genoemd, of shelters. Krijgen de mensen de gelegenheid om daar dus ondergebracht te worden gedurende het moment dat de ramp of dat zo'n hurricane over het land raast. En daarna gaat er begonnen worden met het weer oppakken van de draad van elke dag. En soms moet je beginnen met opruimen, zaken moeten weer gemaakt worden, de mensen moeten weer naar het werk gaan, etc. Dus dat is dan het systeem. Sommige landen die zijn zodanig getroffen dat ze zelf niet echt zelf van de grond kunnen komen en die hebben dan ondersteuning nodig. En die ondersteuning wordt aangevraagd. Gecoördineerde ondersteuning wordt dan gegeven, het zij in blankets of goederen die de mensen kunnen helpen om kort te overleven. En ik denk bijvoorbeeld aan dekens, tarpaulins, etc. Maar ook zaken als voeding, zaken als eerste levensbehoeften, etc. die dus moeten worden gestuurd om de mensen dus weer te helpen om weer op de been te kunnen gaan. Dat is een beetje de werkwijze waarop het een en ander zich voltrekt. Zoveel mogelijk dat de zeehavens of de luchthavens dus toegankelijk worden gemaakt, voor zover ze dus niet meer toegankelijk zijn. En dan wordt er dan daarvan gebruik gemaakt, omdat de beste manier om hulp te brengen is natuurlijk of via luchttransport of via de zee.
Weet u ook misschien, als er Surinamers in de diverse gebieden die getroffen zijn door orkaan Irma huisvesten?
Ik weet bijna zeker dat er dus plaatsen als Sint Maarten, etc. dat er dus inderdaad wel Surinamers zijn. Ik denk ook elders in het Caribisch gebied zullen we zeker ook wel Surinamers hebben die dus of daar wonen of misschien en passant daar zijn. En die dus die orkaan hebben meegemaakt.
Er wonen naar schatting 2000 Surinamers op de eilanden die getroffen zijn door orkaan Irma. Welke bijdrage gaat Suriname leveren aan deze eilanden? Andermaal kolonel Jerry Slijngard van het NCCR.
De president van Suriname die de opdracht heeft gegeven om de mogelijkheid te bekijken om dus zo spoedig mogelijk en als het even kan zo direct mogelijk ondersteuning te geven aan de landen die getroffen zijn. En zeker aan landen als Antigua en Barbuda, dus heel heftig. En met die voorbereidingen zijn wij als Suriname op dit moment heel erg hard bezig. En in een later stadium zullen we natuurlijk officieel uitkomen om te zeggen wat de hulp is die Suriname zal geven aan deze landen. Maar in elk geval is het zo dus dat er reeds vanuit Suriname medeleven is betuigd aan de diverse getroffen landen. En nu wordt er gekeken in de praktijk wat verder gedaan zal worden. We denken dus zaken als houdbare voedingsmiddelen en eventueel water, die dus naar de diverse landen zal moeten gaan. Maar dat is dus op dit moment in voorbereiding. En we zorgen ervoor dat het dus zo snel als mogelijk weg kan, zoals de opdracht van de president luidt.
Storm. Here's what has happened over the past hour.
The strongest Atlantic Ocean hurricane ever recorded.
South Florida now in Irma's destructive path as the ferocious storm shows no signs of weakening.
The quicker we get out of here, the better.
In the Florida Keys, an exodus is underway. Tonight, mandatory evacuation orders in effect. Businesses boarding up. Thousands cramming onto US 1, the only way out.
President Trump declared an emergency today in Florida, Puerto Rico, and the U.S. Virgin Islands, all threatened by the most powerful Atlantic hurricane ever seen. Irma, a Category 5, has already turned deadly on the islands of the Caribbean. The National Hurricane Center says chances have grown for a direct hit on Florida, possibly as soon as the weekend.
This wall of wind and rain is only getting worse tonight as hundreds of Puerto Ricans are already in shelters and more than 200 tourists from this hotel have been evacuated out of their rooms and into a ballroom where they're expecting a very long night in the storm. Residents were warned to brace for the worst as the strongest winds in a century lashed Puerto Rico. Irma has already left plenty of evidence of its record-setting strength. Wind gusts topped 200 miles per hour, knocking out power as buildings collapsed and debris flew. St. Martin took a direct hit. Wind and pelting rain blew palm trees horizontal. Boats were left tangled in the port as cars were nearly submerged. One tourist tweeted that the noise of the storm was insane and was like standing behind a jet engine. He took shelter in the concrete stairwell of a hotel. In St. Barthélemy, roofs flew off buildings, streets became rivers as Irma continued its destructive trek past the British Virgin Islands on its way to the Florida Keys.
Irma's new track has it threatening not just Florida, but Georgia, where they're sandbagging in Savannah. The Atlanta Motor Speedway opening its campgrounds for Irma's evacuees. In North Carolina, the National Guard is on the move.
We are urging all people in North Carolina to be prepared for the impacts of Hurricane Irma.
Like previous monster storms Hugo, Floyd, and Ivan, Irma is what's known as a classic Cape Verde hurricane formed off the west coast of Africa. They're typically among the most intense.
This storm is bigger, faster, and stronger than Hurricane Andrew.
Andrew sliced through South Florida and Louisiana 25 years ago, killing dozens, damaging 125,000 homes, and causing more than $25 billion in damage. With airlines canceling flights later this week and prices skyrocketing.
Here we are in a little Sprinter RV, headed down to Fort Myers, Florida.
The Pryor family borrowed an RV and drove 16 hours overnight from Richmond, Virginia to Fort Myers to rescue 93-year-old Grandma Janet and her friend Beverly.
And they're in.
Tonight, they're among the millions desperately trying to escape the most powerful Atlantic storm in memory.
Here are the headlines regarding Irma.
Unprecedented power. We've had 185-mile-per-hour winds now for 24 hours. That has never happened before in recorded history.
Long lines of cars snake around every gas station in South and Central Florida tonight as people try to get fuel, anticipating gas stations won't be working with a week's loss of power after this hurricane. Although widespread reports are many gas stations have run out. That actually happened here about an hour and a half ago, but that's the best sight right now in all of South Florida, a fuel truck showing up, letting the lines form again. And as anxiety and worry and legitimate panic grow by the hour, if Irma slams first into Miami, that is 6 million people facing catastrophic impact. Irma won't be Eddie Pimentel's first hurricane. Scared?
Yeah, I am. Because, you know, just like I said, just you hope for the best. And
hopeful, yet still fueling up. This longtime Florida resident is heeding warnings about what is to come.
The storm is bigger, faster, and stronger than Hurricane Andrew.
While officials order mandatory evacuations for the Florida Keys and Fort Lauderdale's Broward County.
Out of gas, yeah?
Yes, sir.
It's been very frustrating. I mean, it's chaos out there.
Chaos amid dwindling options for escape. Gas stations are closing today in the Florida Keys. Rental cars are sold out and flights are in short supply. The last plane takes off tomorrow night and a seat may be expensive. According to complaints online, one-way tickets pricing over $1,000.
Hurricane Irma continues to bear down on South Florida, with impact expected beginning on Friday evening.
Broward County's mayor is calling for a local state of emergency as the most powerful hurricane ever recorded in the Atlantic Ocean made landfall in the Caribbean. This video is taken aboard a plane traveling right through the eye of the storm as it intensified. And on the ground, winds blowing at 185 miles an hour in St. John. The island of St. Martin in a total blackout, and first looks at damage show major flooding. In Puerto Rico, power lines and trees down, and officials there predicting some areas will be out of electricity for up to 6 months.
It seems to be record-breaking hurricane heading right toward Florida and Puerto Rico and other places.
Those places currently under a state of emergency.
I cannot stress this enough. Do not ignore evacuation orders. Remember, we can rebuild your home, but we cannot rebuild your life.
Governor Scott's words come as the Gulf Coast rebuilds after Hurricane Harvey. And today, the U.S. Navy redirecting 2 warships on their way to help recovery there to stay off the coast of Florida instead. Planes and the National Guard also on their way.
On Friday, all 6,000 remaining available National Guard members will be reporting for duty.
And soon the same will come for South Carolina. Governor Henry McMaster announcing a state of emergency in his state, but first in its path, the Florida Keys, readying for the worst and hoping only to escape.
Preparing our house isn't the bad part. It's getting on the road and not knowing what we're going to run into. So we're hoping to just get out of the state of Florida.
And as of this afternoon, Miami-Dade County's mayor now has joined Monroe County, the Florida Keys to the south, and Broward County, Fort Lauderdale to the north by ordering a voluntary evacuation for coastal cities, including Key Biscayne and downtown Brickell. However, most people, including the mayor of Miami Beach, fully expect a mandatory evacuation order is absolutely going to come, possibly as early as tomorrow.
Hey, doing everybody, here's the latest on Hurricane Irma, still incredibly powerful. Cat 5 is 156 miles an hour. This is 185. In fact, it was interesting, a fellow meteorologist of mine, Ryan Maui, actually did an updated Saffir-Simpson scale, which is what we rate hurricanes on. And he actually said that there was all that buzz going on, remember, before this storm happened, about it could be a Cat 6. Well, if you actually do the math, technically it would be categorized as a Category 6 hurricane if there was such a thing, by just using the previous numbers and expanding it. So this is definitely one for the record books. There's no doubt about that. In terms of the next 3 or 4 days, it all boils down to right here. At that point, it's going to make a turn. Whether it's a harder turn, maybe east of Florida, maybe right up the east coast or the west coast, the models are pretty much in agreement that it's going to be the track that the Hurricane Center is going with. But remember, just 24 hours ago, those models had this on the west coast of Florida. It can and often does change.
Well, one thing that's interesting is the pressure has actually come down a little bit. So even though the winds are still at 185, the pressure has come down. by about 8 millibars. So that means it is still a strengthening storm, not a weakening storm. And that's the bad news. Also getting very strong winds here in Puerto Rico now. We've had some over hurricane force gusts, but the worst of it is right there at that center of that eye. That's where those 185-mile-an-hour winds are. And hopefully they stay just offshore in Puerto Rico as well as the Dominican Republic. That will not be the case as it moves through the Bahamas, through the Turks and Caicos as well. There isn't really anything that we are seeing that will break this storm apart, other than it's hard to really forecast that a storm is going to stay at a Cat 5 category for that long. Longest that's ever happened is for 3 days. If you look out here at the forecast, it looks like maybe we are going to see that. One other thing, Shepard, we're still kind of, if you take the split the cone, we don't like to do that because anybody inside this cone could see the center of this go. Keep in mind, hurricanes aren't points either. They are larger items or larger storms that impact a lot of area. But if you were to now split the center of this, that puts a Category 4 storm very close right here off the coast of Miami sometime Sunday afternoon. I am not saying that's going to happen, but it is a possibility here. Also could go a little bit off towards the east, and you'll also notice if it stays here offshore, we could have a Category 3 storm somewhere up around the Savannah, Georgia area, maybe over towards Charleston, but you'll also notice that transition there from Miami up towards the Georgia coast. That would kind of be a straight line going right along the coast. This is very similar to what we saw last year with Matthew, which was a storm that hugged the coast the entire way and eventually made landfall in the Carolinas. This is kind of a similar path. We cannot say if it goes 20 miles one way or another still yet. In fact, we probably won't be able to do that until it's happening. So everybody here across parts of Florida watching this, but we also need to be watching in Georgia and South Carolina as well, Shep.
So everybody in the entire peninsula of Florida, everyone in that peninsula is still in the sort of cone of uncertainty.
Certainly. It is very possible that this storm still kind of takes a little bit of a western turn here. What we know is going to happen is that the storm is going to make a right-hand turn. Where that happens is very difficult for us to say at this point.
Let's break it down a little closer for you and look at these spaghetti plots. Another change is this. Yesterday, more of the models moved in to Cuba. The higher terrain with the mountains over 6,000 meters would shred the system down and maybe break it down to a Category 2. Most of the models do not interact with Cuba now, so it sustains its strength over the very warm waters. Still, sometime Saturday, a turn to the north. And now, with that shift eastward, it looks like Monroe County, Miami-Dade, right on to Miami, maybe even making its way along the coast, possibly back over water around Cape Canaveral, slides into Savannah, Georgia. If I show you quickly what the models are doing, again, let's just go ahead and pull up the U.S. and the European. They're on top of each other right now. Let's put this into motion. You're going to see no interaction with Cuba. Here is landfall near Miami. It continues to make its way northward. Both models carry it back over water and then into Georgia and the Carolinas. We've got an interesting situation right now we're setting up because we now have Jose back behind the system as a hurricane and another one. But just to remind you of what Matthew did along the coastline, $15 billion in economic losses, and that was just off the coast. Guess what? Katia just became a hurricane. In the southern Gulf of Mexico, we have 3. It has not happened since 2010 when we had Carl, Julia, and Igor, I believe it was. But Jose may become a major category, follow suit, and come very close to those northern islands again of the Lesser Antilles before turning northward. This is getting crazy, Wood.
It is absolutely heart-wrenching. I mean, the infrastructure, the utilities infrastructure was damaged. The physical infrastructure was damaged. You'd recognize, too, that what I saw was heart-wrenching. I mean, absolutely devastating. In fact, I believe that on a per capita basis, the extent of the destruction in Barbuda is unprecedented.